Why would a single slice of fruit after dinner leave a man half paralyzed by morning? That was the haunting question doctors asked when Mr. Richard Thompson, a 75-year-old retired accountant living in a quiet neighborhood in southern Texas, was rushed to the ER just after sunrise. The night before, he had been perfectly fine, chatting with his wife, taking his evening medication for blood pressure, and finishing his usual snack, a banana, just half of one, something he'd eaten nearly every night for the past 2 years. But that morning, something had changed. He couldn't move the left side of his body. His speech was slurred. His gaze was vacant. Scans revealed a mild ischemic stroke. Blood tests told the rest of the story. Elevated potassium levels, low overnight hydration, and slowed circulation, all of which had quietly conspired to form a clot that cut off blood flow to part of his brain. What shocked his family the most wasn't just that it happened, but that it was triggered by something so seemingly healthy. This isn't a cautionary tale about rare reactions or obscure fruit. This is about common habits that turn risky when we get older, especially when we don't account for slower kidneys, thinner arteries, or medications that alter how our bodies process nutrients. Fruit, in particular, has been glorified for decades as nature's perfect food, and for many people under 40, it can be. But past 60, the story changes dramatically. What if that healthy fruit bowl is quietly pushing your blood pressure too low? What if your body can no longer process the sugar or enzymes the same way it once did? And what if a food that helped you stay fit at 30 is now undermining your brain at 70? It's time to uncover the truth, one fruit at a time. Let's begin with the first, and perhaps most misunderstood, item on the list, the banana. Often hailed as heart healthy, it may be silently threatening your neurological health, especially when combined with blood pressure medication and eaten at the wrong time. Welcome to the deep dive, the science behind the sweetness. For decades, bananas have been seen as the epitome of a healthy breakfast, soft, convenient, packed with potassium, and gentle on the stomach. For younger individuals, these benefits hold up. But once you cross the threshold of 60, what once nourished you may start to work against you in ways that are subtle, invisible, and in some cases, devastating. The truth is, bananas are rich in potassium, about 450 milligrams per large fruit. For a young, healthy body, potassium is managed well. But in the aging body, especially one affected by chronic health conditions or medication use, potassium can quietly accumulate in the bloodstream. As kidney function declines, a normal part of aging, your body's ability to filter out excess potassium decreases. Add to that the use of ACE inhibitors or diuretics, commonly prescribed for hypertension and heart failure, and you've got a dangerous trio. Too much potassium, too fast, can disrupt the heart's electrical rhythm. It makes your blood vessels constrict, encourages clot formation, and can lead to dangerous changes in blood pressure overnight. In the brain, where even a brief disruption in blood flow can cause lasting damage, this mineral overload becomes a stroke waiting to happen. I'll never forget my patient, Mr. Raymond Tucker, a 69-year-old retired engineer from Austin, Texas. Raymond was in excellent shape for his age. He walked every morning, kept a mostly plant-based diet, and never missed a dose of his blood pressure medication. For years, his morning routine looked like this: 1 bowl of oatmeal, a sliced banana on top, and a glass of orange juice to wash down his pills. It felt clean. It felt responsible. Until one morning, when his wife found him collapsed near the bathroom sink. He was conscious, but slurring his speech. His left hand was curled inward, and he couldn't move his leg. At the hospital, scans confirmed a small ischemic stroke. But what shocked us even more were his blood test results. His potassium levels were elevated far beyond the normal range, the likely culprit. The interaction between his diet and his medication. 2 bananas per day, combined with his ACE inhibitor and low kidney filtration rate, had quietly pushed his body over the edge. And this isn't an isolated case. In 2021, a research team from Hanoi Medical University in Vietnam published a study examining elderly patients on diuretics and ACE inhibitors. They found that nearly 30% had subclinical hyperkalemia, high blood potassium, with no outward symptoms. Many of them had regular dietary habits that included potassium-rich fruits like bananas. For them, the healthy choice was setting a trap. Now, I'm not suggesting that bananas are evil, far from it. But for seniors, especially those with hypertension, kidney issues, or on prescription medications, moderation is no longer optional, it's essential. If you're over 60 and love bananas, limit yourself to half a banana per day, preferably in the morning, and always paired with a protein like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a small handful of nuts. Never eat bananas on an empty stomach. And above all, do not eat them before bed, when circulation slows and your medications are still active in your system. In Vietnam and across Southeast Asia, it's common to eat a banana as a sweet finish to dinner, often alongside evening medications. In the US, many seniors opt for banana smoothies as a light nighttime snack. What they don't realize is that the digestive slowdown that comes with aging, combined with poor nighttime hydration and active medication in the bloodstream, creates a perfect storm for vascular disaster. So ask yourself honestly, are you unknowingly combining bananas with your heart or blood pressure medications? This kind of awareness can save your life or the life of someone you love. Because sometimes the things that look the safest are the ones that blindside us. And when it comes to stroke prevention, there's no room for guesswork. But if bananas can surprise you, just wait until we talk about grapes. Those tiny, innocent fruits we mindlessly pop into our mouths during afternoon tea or as a snack while watching TV. They're not just sugar bombs in disguise. In seniors, they can trigger vascular inflammation, disturb blood sugar levels, and most dangerously, create the ideal environment for a silent stroke. Let's take a closer look at how something as sweet and seemingly harmless as a grape can silently harden your arteries, inflame your brain's blood vessels, and push your cognitive health toward crisis. Grapes have a way of sneaking into our routines without much thought. They're sweet, seedless, bite-sized, too convenient to question. You might find them in your cereal bowl, packed in lunchboxes, or sitting in a pretty glass dish on a table after Sunday dinner. For many older adults, grapes feel like a guilt-free pleasure, something small and natural to enjoy without worry. But beneath that sweetness lies a surprising risk, especially for those over 60. The real concern with grapes isn't their size or shape. It's their sugar density and the speed at which that sugar floods your bloodstream. A single cup of red or green seedless grapes can contain nearly 23 grams of natural sugar. Unlike complex carbs, which digest slowly and steadily, the sugars in grapes hit fast. That sugar rush triggers a rapid insulin response, and for an aging body, particularly one dealing with prediabetes, insulin resistance, or vascular fragility, this can be the spark that ignites a much deeper issue. Here's what happens inside your body. When sugar surges into your blood, especially when it's not balanced by fiber, fat, or protein, your blood vessels experience a kind of shock. The lining of your arteries, called the endothelium, becomes inflamed, and nowhere is that lining more delicate or more essential than in the brain. When the brain's vessels swell or weaken from repeated sugar spikes, microtears can form. These tears become breeding grounds for blood clots, and you won't feel a thing, not right away. One of my patients, Ms. Janette Morris, age 74 from Kansas City, had always considered herself health conscious. She avoided cookies and soda, didn't drink alcohol, and took long daily walks. Her go-to snack, grapes, She'd eat a bowl of them every day around 2 p.m., often while doing her crossword puzzle or talking on the phone with her grandkids. One afternoon, while writing a birthday card for her great-niece, she noticed her vision blurring. Then her hand trembled. A few seconds later, she couldn't remember how to spell the word love. Her daughter rushed her to the emergency room, where doctors diagnosed her with a transient ischemic attack, a mini stroke. Her blood sugar had spiked earlier that day, and her labs revealed low-grade inflammation in her vascular system. Jeanette was stunned. She thought grapes were healthy, and they are for some, but for her, they had become the quiet trigger behind a silent attack. A 2020 study from the University of Medicine and Pharmacy in Ho Chi Minh City studied elderly patients with borderline glucose tolerance. The researchers found that those who consumed fast-absorbing fruit sugars, particularly from grapes and watermelon, in the afternoon were significantly more likely to experience postprandial hyperglycemia or extreme blood sugar surges after meals. These spikes were directly linked to higher levels of vascular inflammation and increased stroke risk, especially in those with comorbidities like hypertension or early-stage diabetes. So how do you enjoy grapes safely, if at all, after 60? First, never eat them on an empty stomach. The sugar hits harder and faster when there's nothing else in your system to slow it down. Second, always pair grapes with a source of protein or healthy fat, a small cube of cheese, a handful of cashews, or a tablespoon of nut butter. This combination slows digestion and reduces the glycemic impact. Third, limit your portion. A handful is enough, not a bowl, not a bunch, and most importantly, avoid eating grapes at night. Your body's insulin sensitivity is lowest in the evening, your circulation slows, and your brain enters its most vulnerable state. Spiking your blood sugar during that window creates the ideal conditions for clot formation while you sleep. It's a silent risk, but one you can easily avoid with a few mindful changes. This isn't just about grapes. It's about what they represent, the myth that natural means safe. For seniors, the timing, portion, and pairing of even the healthiest foods can mean the difference between stability and crisis. So before you reach for that cluster of grapes with your evening tea, ask yourself, am I eating this out of habit, or am I fueling my brain with intention? Because as we've seen, sweetness can carry a hidden cost. And speaking of sweet, but silently dangerous, there's another fruit many seniors love that's been falsely praised for its digestive benefits. It's juicy, tropical, and loaded with enzymes, but under the wrong circumstances, it can disrupt your blood's clotting ability, irritate your esophagus, and quietly raise your risk of a stroke while you sleep. Let's take a deeper look at pineapple and why your favorite after-dinner dessert may not be as innocent as it seems. There's something about pineapple that feels clean and virtuous, sweet yet tangy, tropical but somehow wholesome. For many older adults, especially those trying to avoid processed desserts, a few slices of fresh pineapple after dinner seem like the perfect compromise. It's natural, it's rich in enzymes, it helps with digestion, or so we've been told. But hidden inside that golden fruit is a dangerous combination that most seniors have never been warned about: sugar, acid, and bromelain. Let's talk about bromelain first. It's a naturally occurring enzyme found in pineapple that breaks down protein. In small doses, bromelain can aid digestion, reduce inflammation, and even relieve sinus pressure. But in higher concentrations, especially when paired with certain medications, bromelain can interfere with platelet function, the body's ability to form clots when needed. That might sound like a good thing if you're trying to avoid clots, but if you're already on anticoagulants like warfarin, apixaban, or even a daily aspirin, bromelain can push your blood too far in the other direction, making it too thin, too fragile. This is particularly concerning when pineapple is consumed at night, a time when the body's blood pressure naturally dips, and brain circulation slows. If the blood becomes too thin during this vulnerable window, even a tiny rupture in a brain vessel can lead to a hemorrhagic stroke, the kind where bleeding occurs inside the skull. And unlike an ischemic stroke, which builds silently through clotting, a bleed can happen in a matter of minutes, often during sleep, with no warning signs. That's exactly what happened to one of my patients, Mrs. Carol Whitmore, a 77-year-old retired librarian from Savannah, Georgia. Carol was vibrant, sharp, and deeply committed to healthy eating. She stayed away from cake and cookies and replaced her evening dessert with a bowl of fresh pineapple slices, believing she was helping her digestion and avoiding sugar-laden treats. This became a nightly ritual for over a year. What she didn't realize was that she was also taking a low-dose aspirin and a calcium channel blocker for high blood pressure. One morning, she woke up disoriented and couldn't stand without swaying. Her daughter noticed that her speech was slightly slurred and rushed her to the ER. A CT scan revealed a small posterior circulation stroke caused by a bleed in the brainstem area that regulates balance. Carol's blood tests showed platelet dysfunction and slightly elevated bromelain exposure, combined with her medication, a perfect storm of unintended consequences. She hadn't done anything wrong. She was doing what so many seniors do, making what seemed like a safe, natural choice. But at her age, with her medication profile, that choice became dangerous, and it wasn't just bromelain. Pineapple is also high in natural sugar, more than 16 grams per cup. It has a high glycemic index, which means it spikes blood sugar quickly. When eaten late in the day, those sugar spikes aren't used for energy. Instead, they circulate through the bloodstream while the body rests, stressing the vascular system. On top of that, pineapple is extremely acidic. This acid can irritate the esophagus and increase the risk of silent acid reflux, especially during sleep. For some older adults, this reflux doesn't cause burning pain. It causes subtle aspiration, which can reduce oxygen delivery to the brain and increase the likelihood of an early morning stroke. So what should seniors do? If you enjoy pineapple, eat it earlier in the day, preferably at lunch, and never on an empty stomach. Always pair it with protein or healthy fats to slow down the sugar absorption. And if you're taking blood thinners, aspirin, or have a history of acid reflux, speak to your doctor before making pineapple a regular part of your diet. In many households, particularly in Southeast Asia or southern US states, pineapple is considered a digestive cleanser after a heavy dinner. It's part of cultural tradition, often served without question. But the aging body doesn't work like it used to. The stomach empties more slowly. The liver metabolizes more cautiously. The brain's blood vessels are thinner, more fragile. And something as simple as a fruit, if eaten at the wrong time, in the wrong combination, can quietly disrupt the balance your body is fighting to preserve. So before you slice into that late-night pineapple, ask yourself, is this really helping my digestion or silently putting my brain at risk? Because even a fruit packed with enzymes can become a threat when paired with an aging circulatory system and modern medication. And if pineapple surprises you, wait until you hear about watermelon. It's praised for hydration, perfect for hot days, and considered safe enough for toddlers and seniors alike. But under certain conditions, especially for older adults, it may be doing the opposite of what you expect. In fact, watermelon might be drying out your brain while you sleep. Let's take a closer look at this deceptively watery fruit and uncover why it may quietly set the stage for stroke. Watermelon is one of those fruits that seems universally harmless. After all, it's more than 90% water. It's hydrating, refreshing, and often served on hot days to help cool the body. For many seniors, especially during summer months, watermelon is seen as a safe treat, something light, sweet, and even therapeutic. But for people over 60, particularly those with cardiovascular issues or who take diuretics, this watery fruit may be doing the exact opposite of what it promises. While watermelon contains water, it also acts as a natural diuretic. Its combination of water, potassium, and certain plant compounds gently encourages the kidneys to excrete more fluid. That might be fine or even beneficial for a younger adult, but for an older person whose blood pressure medications are already pulling fluids from the body, the diuretic effect of watermelon can quietly tip the body into dehydration, especially overnight, when fluid intake is naturally restricted and circulation slows. When the body becomes mildly dehydrated, the blood thickens. Think of it like turning from a free-flowing stream into sticky syrup. This thicker blood moves more slowly through your arteries. And in people with stiffened or narrowed vessels, a common trait in seniors, it creates the perfect conditions for a clot to form, especially in the small arteries that feed the brain. Morning is when most strokes occur, and dehydration is one of the key reasons why. One of my patients, Mr. Harold Jennings, an 82-year-old retired mechanic from Oklahoma, believed he was doing everything right. He walked every morning, took his medications faithfully, and rarely indulged in unhealthy foods. But during one particularly hot summer, he began eating 2 or 3 thick slices of watermelon every evening as a way to cool down and stay hydrated. What he didn't account for was that he was also taking furosemide, a diuretic for mild heart failure. Over time, Harold began waking up feeling dizzy, disoriented, and with dry mouth. One morning, while getting out of bed, he suddenly lost his balance and collapsed. At the hospital, his blood pressure was dangerously low, and blood tests revealed elevated hemoglobin concentration, a sign of dehydration. A CT scan confirmed a minor ischemic stroke, likely caused by a small clot that had formed overnight when his blood was at its thickest. Harold survived, but the stroke affected his coordination and speech. He had no idea that something as innocent as watermelon, combined with his medication and age-related changes in fluid regulation, could cause such a serious event. A national study from the Vietnam National Institute of Nutrition found that dehydration was among the top 5 risk factors for early morning strokes in seniors, particularly during the dry season or in households with poor awareness of fluid balance. And many of those affected had reported eating watermelon at night as their hydration strategy. So what should you do if you love watermelon? First, don't eat it at night. It's better consumed earlier in the day, at breakfast or lunch, when your body is active and your kidneys and circulation are functioning at full capacity. Second, balance it with electrolytes. Add a pinch of natural sea salt or pair it with a few sips of coconut water to maintain mineral stability. Third, if you're on diuretics or medications that affect blood pressure, talk to your doctor before making watermelon a regular part of your summer routine. A fruit that's over 90% water might still dry out your brain in the most vulnerable moments. In many cultures, including in Vietnam and parts of the American South, watermelon is the post-meal staple during Tet or 4th of July gatherings. It's sliced generously, passed around with smiles, and eaten without a second thought. But for seniors, especially those already managing delicate health balances, this tradition deserves a more mindful approach. Because sometimes it's not what a fruit gives, but what it takes away quietly. That makes it dangerous. And watermelon isn't the only seemingly safe fruit hiding a darker side. Next, we'll look at oranges, long considered the poster child for vitamin C and immune support. But in reality, for older adults on heart medications, oranges may do more than boost your immunity. They may interfere with your prescriptions, thin your blood too much, or cause sudden shifts in blood pressure. Let's explore why this breakfast favorite may not belong on your morning tray anymore. Oranges have long been a breakfast staple in American households, bright, juicy, and packed with vitamin C for many seniors. Starting the day with a glass of fresh orange juice feels like a healthy ritual. It's natural. It's refreshing, it's doctor approved. Or is it? While oranges do contain beneficial nutrients, they also carry an invisible biochemical danger that can quietly disrupt your body's ability to process medications, especially for older adults already managing heart conditions, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol. The culprit, a group of compounds called furanocoumarins. These naturally occurring chemicals are found in citrus fruits like oranges, grapefruits, and Seville oranges. Furanocoumarins inhibit the CYP3A4 enzyme, a key component of the liver's detox system, known as the cytochrome P450 pathway. This pathway helps your body metabolize medications gradually and safely. When that enzyme is blocked, as it is by furanocoumarins, medications that should be broken down in small doses instead build up in your bloodstream. That buildup doesn't just make your meds stronger, it can make them toxic. This becomes especially dangerous for seniors taking statins for cholesterol, calcium channel blockers for blood pressure, or blood thinners. Instead of being processed and cleared, these drugs linger, intensifying their effects, causing side effects, and increasing the risk of dangerous interactions. One of my patients, Mr. Elmer Bryant, a 79-year-old retired bus driver from Georgia, learned this the hard way. Elmer was a friendly, disciplined man who had been managing his high cholesterol and blood pressure with medication for years. Every morning, he drank a full glass of freshly squeezed orange juice with his pills, believing he was doing something good for his heart. For weeks, he began feeling slightly dizzy in the mornings, sometimes lightheaded when standing. Then one morning, he stood up from his recliner and collapsed. At the hospital, doctors found he'd suffered a mild ischemic stroke. Blood tests revealed dangerously high levels of his medications, even though he was taking the correct doses. The orange juice had blocked his liver's ability to process the drugs. The result, a silent buildup of chemicals that pushed his body to the brink. This isn't an isolated case. A report from Bach Mai Hospital in Vietnam documented several similar incidents involving seniors who combined citrus juice with statins or calcium channel blockers. In some cases, patients experienced elevated liver enzymes, in others, mini strokes. The common thread was always citrus juice and medications sharing the same metabolic pathway. So how do you protect yourself? First, if you're on heart or blood pressure medication, avoid drinking full glasses of orange juice, especially freshly squeezed or concentrated versions. A small wedge or slice of orange in a salad is unlikely to cause harm, but juice delivers a concentrated dose of both sugar and furanocoumarins. That's a dangerous mix. High sugar raises your blood glucose, while the furanocoumarins interfere with your medications. Second, always check medication labels for grapefruit or citrus warnings, even if you're not taking grapefruit directly. Many interactions apply to oranges and their derivatives, too. Third, if you crave citrus flavor, opt for alternatives like clementines or lemons, which carry a lower risk of interaction when used in small quantities. Adding a splash of lemon to water, for example, is generally safe and may even support digestion without impacting your medications. In Vietnam and many parts of Southeast Asia, it's common for older adults to drink orange juice with their morning pills, a habit believed to help the medicine go down easier. In reality, that juice may be undermining the very treatment they rely on to survive. And the worst part, it feels so harmless, so routine, that no one stops to question it. So ask yourself, is my morning glass of orange juice fueling my health, or silently blocking the medicine meant to protect it? because the foods we trust the most are often the ones that escape scrutiny. And speaking of trust, let's turn our attention to a fruit that wears the halo of wholesomeness more than any other, the apple. But as you'll soon discover, even this iconic fruit can carry hidden dangers for the aging brain, especially when sweetness comes without balance. Apples have long been the symbol of health. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, as the saying goes. And while that may have held true decades ago, the truth for today's aging population, especially those over 60, is far more nuanced. Not all apples are created equal, and not all bodies can handle their sweetness the same way. For seniors, particularly those managing blood sugar, blood pressure, or vascular health, the wrong kind of apple eaten the wrong way can quietly fuel the exact conditions that lead to a stroke. Let's break it down. Many of the most popular apple varieties in supermarkets today, Fuji, Gala, Honeycrisp, are bred for one thing: sweetness. These apples are significantly higher in sugar than their tart counterparts. While they still contain some fiber and antioxidants, their glycemic load is high, meaning they cause a quick and noticeable spike in blood sugar. In a younger body, the pancreas responds quickly with insulin, glucose is transported into cells, and things return to normal. But in an older adult with insulin resistance, this spike leads to a dangerous chain reaction. When blood sugar rises rapidly, insulin levels surge to compensate. That sudden rise in insulin not only drops blood sugar too quickly, but it also alters blood pH, increasing acidity. Over time, repeated spikes in insulin and acid contribute to vascular inflammation, cause arterial walls to stiffen, and encourage the formation of microscopic cracks in blood vessels, especially the delicate ones that feed the brain. When these cracks occur, the body reacts as it always has. It tries to patch the damage. That patch comes in the form of clots, and for someone with already narrow vessels, that tiny clot can be the final straw that disrupts blood flow to a part of the brain. The result, a silent stroke, or worse, a full ischemic event. Take Mrs. Evelyn Gardner, for example. At 81, she was a retired teacher from upstate New York who took pride in her clean eating. She didn't bake much, avoided white bread, and exercised lightly most days. Her afternoon snack was always the same: one large Honeycrisp apple, eaten while she read her garden magazines near the window. It felt healthy. No cookies, no chips, just fruit. Over time, Evelyn began noticing slight vision blur in the evenings and a strange, mild pressure at the back of her head. One evening, while chopping vegetables for soup, she realized she couldn't articulate her words clearly. Her daughter, alarmed, called an ambulance. At the hospital, doctors confirmed a minor stroke. Blood work showed erratic glucose patterns and signs of endothelial damage, pointing to repeated sugar surges from her daily apple routine. This may sound surprising, but research backs it up. A study from Kendo University of Medicine and Pharmacy examined how glycemic responses differed between types of apples in seniors with early-stage diabetes. The findings: sweet apple varieties like Fuji and Gala led to significantly higher postprandial glucose spikes than tart apples like Granny Smith. These spikes were correlated with elevated inflammatory markers and increased risk of vascular instability. So what should older adults do? First, choose the right apple. Granny Smith and other tart varieties have less sugar and a lower glycemic impact. Second, never eat an apple alone, especially if you're older or insulin resistant. Pair it with a tablespoon of almond butter, a few walnuts, or a small slice of cheese to help slow down sugar absorption. Third, avoid eating apples late in the day or at night. Your body's ability to manage glucose diminishes with circadian rhythm, and the brain is more vulnerable to vascular stress while you sleep. In hospitals and senior centers, apples are often included in meal trays, seen as the go-to healthy fruit. but few consider the type of apple or the broader context of each patient's metabolic health. This well-intentioned habit, repeated daily, can become a slow and silent threat if not adjusted to suit an aging body. So next time you reach for an apple, ask yourself, is this the right kind of sweetness for my brain? Or am I quietly tightening the vessels that keep me functioning? Because even nature's most iconic fruit can carry hidden risks when eaten blindly. And if that thought gives you pause, it should, especially before we move on to a fruit that's not only sweet but medicinal in nature, one that's often praised for fighting inflammation, but in reality can thin your blood too far if you're not careful. Let's take a closer look at cherries and why this beautiful little fruit could turn from helpful to harmful in the blink of an eye. Cherries are small, vibrant, and deceptively charming. Their deep red color suggests health and vitality. They're recommended in magazines for joint pain, packed into anti-inflammatory diets, and served as elegant toppings in retirement brunches. But beneath that sweet exterior, cherries harbor a compound that, while helpful in some contexts, can turn dangerous in others, especially for seniors on blood-thinning medications. Cherries naturally contain salicylates, a class of compounds chemically similar to aspirin. These substances are known for their anti-inflammatory and blood-thinning properties. That may sound beneficial, especially for someone trying to prevent clots, but in an aging body already on medications like warfarin, clopidogrel Plavix, or even daily aspirin, the addition of dietary salicylates can tip the balance too far. Too much blood thinning isn't just uncomfortable, it's life-threatening. It can result in spontaneous bleeding, fragile capillaries, and in severe cases, intracranial hemorrhage or bleeding inside the brain. Unlike a clot-based stroke, where a vessel is blocked, this type of stroke occurs when a weakened vessel ruptures, flooding brain tissue with blood and causing damage that is often more difficult to treat and recover from. Take the case of Mr. Walter Simmons, an 84-year-old retired postal worker from Sacramento. Walter had a history of atrial fibrillation and had been prescribed warfarin years earlier. He managed his health carefully, took his pills on time, ate modestly, and avoided alcohol. He believed in natural healing and was thrilled when his grandson brought him a large basket of imported cherries, nature's medicine, as he called them. Walter began eating a generous handful of cherries every evening after dinner, believing they would help with his arthritis and digestion. After 2 weeks of this habit, he awoke one morning with a severe headache and blurred vision. Within minutes, he collapsed. At the ER, a brain scan revealed a small but dangerous hemorrhagic stroke. Blood work showed his INR, the measure of how long it takes blood to clot, was far above the therapeutic range. His warfarin dose hadn't changed. What had changed was his diet. The cherries, loaded with salicylates, had amplified the effects of his medication, weakening his vascular integrity to the point of rupture. This is not just anecdotal. A study published by Cho Ray Hospital in Vietnam examined multiple stroke cases involving older patients on warfarin who also consumed high salicylate foods. The research identified a consistent pattern. Those who ate large portions of cherries or cherry-derived products, like juice or concentrate, while on blood thinners had significantly elevated bleeding risks, even with proper medication adherence. So how do you enjoy cherries without inviting risk? If you're over 60 and on any anticoagulant or antiplatelet medication, approach cherries with caution. A few cherries on occasion, perhaps 3 to 5, are generally safe. But avoid cherry juice, dried cherries, or daily consumption without consulting your doctor. The salicylates in these concentrated forms can act quickly and unpredictably. And remember, just because something is natural doesn't mean it's benign. In many parts of Asia and the US, cherries are seen as luxurious, healthy gifts for seniors. Imported boxes arrive during holidays, birthdays, and special visits, given with love and good intentions. But if you're not mindful of your medication, that thoughtful gift could unintentionally cause harm. Ask yourself, are these little fruits helping my joints or thinning my blood too far for my brain to handle? Because beautiful doesn't always mean safe, especially when your vascular system is already walking a fine line. And if cherries caught you off guard, you'll want to pay even closer attention to strawberries, fruits just as sweet and vibrant, but often laced with hidden chemicals and compounds that don't wash off easily. Let's peel back the shine and uncover what may really be hiding beneath that red surface. Strawberries are the picture of health, bright red, heart-shaped, and often served on salads, oatmeal, or in antioxidant smoothies. For many seniors, they represent a sweet indulgence that feels both innocent and therapeutic. But for adults over 60, particularly those with a history of vascular issues, memory decline, or inflammation, strawberries can quietly become a source of hidden harm. One of the most pressing concerns with strawberries is pesticide exposure. Year after year, strawberries rank at the top of the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list, fruits and vegetables with the highest pesticide residues even after washing. Unlike produce with thick skins, strawberries absorb what they're sprayed with. That means washing them in water or even vinegar doesn't completely eliminate the residues. For younger individuals with efficient detox systems, occasional exposure may not pose much risk, but for older adults with sluggish liver function and slower cellular repair, those residues can accumulate in tissues, especially in the brain. Pesticides used on conventionally grown strawberries have been shown in studies to carry neurotoxic effects. Over time, they contribute to oxidative stress in brain cells, damage the blood-brain barrier, and accelerate cognitive decline. But that's not all. Strawberries also contain purines, compounds that break down into uric acid in the body. Elevated uric acid levels have long been linked to gout, but more recent research has connected it to endothelial dysfunction or damage to the inner lining of blood vessels, particularly in the brain. This double-threat neurotoxicity from pesticides and vascular stress from uric acid makes strawberries uniquely problematic for the aging brain. Take the case of Mrs. Diane Caldwell, an 80-year-old retired choir director from Oregon. Diane was vibrant, sharp, and loved her routines. Every morning, she made herself a bowl of oatmeal topped with a handful of sliced strawberries, imported, glossy, and prepackaged. She believed they were keeping her young, but over time, she began noticing worsening joint pain and occasional forgetfulness. Then one morning, she felt tingling in her left arm and a heaviness in her tongue. She was rushed to the ER, where doctors diagnosed her with a mild ischemic stroke. Her blood tests revealed elevated uric acid, early signs of cognitive inflammation, and chemical markers linked to chronic pesticide exposure. While no single food can be blamed for such an event, her daily strawberry intake, combined with her underlying health profile, had become a silent stressor her body could no longer tolerate. The Pasteur Institute in Ho Chi Minh City published a warning about imported strawberries from China and North America, citing high levels of pesticide residue that exceed safe limits, especially in fruit grown out of season. They emphasized that for vulnerable populations, children and the elderly, these residues can have cumulative effects, ranging from liver stress to long-term cognitive damage. So what's the safe way to eat strawberries? First, buy organic whenever possible. Organic strawberries are not treated with the same cocktail of synthetic pesticides and are significantly safer for long-term consumption. Second, limit frequency. Eating strawberries once or twice a week is generally fine, but don't make them your primary source of antioxidants. Blueberries or blackberries, for instance, offer similar benefits with lower risk. Third, wash thoroughly. Soak in baking soda or use a product cleanser if you're not using organic fruit. And remember, if you have gout, kidney issues, or cognitive concerns, talk to your doctor before including strawberries in your daily regimen. In many cultures, including Vietnam and the US, strawberries are gifted to elders as a symbol of care, wrapped in ribbons, boxed beautifully, imported from far away. But the irony is that what looks like a gift on the outside can, in the wrong body, act more like a slow-acting toxin. So ask yourself, are you nourishing your brain or quietly feeding it something it can't process or detoxify anymore? Because in the world of aging nutrition, how food is grown matters just as much as what food you choose. And if strawberries gave you pause, brace yourself for what's next: mangoes. Often praised as a tropical superfruit, mangoes are rich in nutrients, but they're also rich in sugar and contain compounds that can interfere with your liver's ability to process medication. Let's dig into why that soft, sweet orange flesh may be doing more harm than good, especially after 60. Mango is often seen as nature's dessert, soft, fragrant, and decadently sweet. In tropical cultures, it's a symbol of summer, celebration, and vitality. For seniors trying to eat naturally, mango often replaces cake or cookies as a guilt-free indulgence. But the truth is, behind its golden glow, mango can quietly become one of the most dangerous fruits for adults over 60, especially those managing heart conditions, blood pressure, or on daily medications. Let's start with sugar. A single cup of ripe mango can contain up to 45 grams of sugar, more than most donuts. And unlike complex carbohydrates, the natural sugar in mango is rapidly absorbed, causing fast and intense blood glucose spikes. For aging bodies with slower insulin response or underlying insulin resistance, this rapid rise puts a strain on the entire cardiovascular system. But sugar isn't the only concern. Mango also contains a lesser-known compound called mangiferin, a plant polyphenol that, while having some antioxidant properties, also affects how your liver processes certain drugs. Research from the University of Medicine and Pharmacy at Ho Chi Minh City found that mangiferin can inhibit the cytochrome P450 enzyme system, particularly the CYP3A4 pathway, the very route through which your body metabolizes many heart, cholesterol, and blood pressure medications. When that system is slowed down, your medications don't exit your body at the correct rate. They accumulate. That buildup may go unnoticed at first, but over time it can lead to toxicity, sudden blood pressure drops, irregular heart rhythms, or even overdose-level concentrations, all without increasing your dose. One such case was Mr. Arthur Delgado, 83 years old, a retired firefighter from Tampa, Florida. Arthur had swapped his nightly cookies for a few pieces of dried mango, thinking it was a smart, health-conscious move. He had been on amlodipine and metoprolol for years to control his blood pressure and heart rate. For weeks, he felt a little dizzy in the mornings, but brushed it off as part of aging. Then one day, he collapsed while stepping out of bed. Paramedics found him confused and hypotensive. At the hospital, scans revealed a mild ischemic stroke, but what puzzled the doctors was the level of medication in his system. It was double the expected concentration, even though he hadn't taken extra doses. After reviewing his diet, the answer became clear. The daily dried mango had interfered with his liver's ability to break down his prescriptions. The sugar spikes didn't help either. When sugar surges like that, especially before bed, it doesn't get used. It circulates, triggers inflammation, and stresses the very blood vessels that supply your brain. Over time, this leads to microtears in the arteries, clot formation, and a dramatically increased risk of stroke. So how should seniors approach mango? First, limit your portion. just a few small pieces, no more than 1/4 cup, and only during active hours of the day, such as mid-morning or after lunch. Never eat mango before bed, and avoid dried mango altogether, which is significantly higher in sugar and more concentrated in active compounds. Second, pair mango with protein or healthy fat, a few almonds or a spoonful of yogurt to slow down absorption. Third, if you're on medications for heart, blood pressure, or cholesterol, talk to your doctor before making mango a regular part of your diet. In places like Vietnam or the Philippines, mangoes are often forced to ripen quickly with chemical treatments, making their sugar content abnormally high and their enzyme activity unpredictable. Even seemingly fresh mango may have been altered in ways that make it more dangerous for an aging body. So ask yourself, is this soft, fragrant slice of fruit helping me stay healthy, or silently overpowering the medications that keep me alive? Because sometimes the things that taste the sweetest carry the sharpest risks, especially when your body can no longer buffer the blow. And now that we've explored the hidden dangers behind 9 fruits commonly seen as harmless or even healthy, it's time to pause and reflect. Because food, especially at this stage of life, isn't just about fuel. It's about balance, chemistry, and context. Let's now move into the final section, where we'll distill these insights into clear takeaways and explore how to rebuild your diet around fruits and routines that truly nourish the brain, protect your heart, and preserve your independence. As we've seen, the line between natural and dangerous isn't as clear-cut as many believe, especially after 60. In the world of aging, even fruits that seem harmless, even beneficial, can quietly turn into triggers for inflammation, clot formation, blood pressure instability, or dangerous drug interactions. What's most concerning is that these risks often go unnoticed, not because they're rare, but because they build slowly, invisibly, through daily habits that feel completely normal. A glass of orange juice with medication, a few grapes in the afternoon, a slice of mango before bed. It's the accumulation, not the occasion, that matters most. But this isn't a call to fear food. It's an invitation to reframe how we eat fruit in later life. After 60, the goal isn't restriction, it's precision. You don't need to avoid all sweet fruits, but you do need to understand which ones support your health, which ones require caution, and how to pair them wisely. So what should you reach for? Start with blueberries, rich in antioxidants and low in sugar. They support brain health and vascular integrity. Avocados, technically a fruit, offer healthy fats that regulate blood pressure without spiking insulin. Granny Smith apples, tart, fiber-rich, and lower on the glycemic index, are safer options when eaten with protein. Blackberries, like blueberries, offer polyphenols that reduce inflammation. And pomegranate juice, when heavily diluted, can be a powerful vascular tonic. Just remember, moderation is everything. The real lesson is simple yet profound. You don't need to eat more to live well as you age. You just need to eat smarter. With the right knowledge and a little awareness, every piece of fruit can become either a medicine or a mistake. Your body has changed, and your diet should too. Now is the time to shift from routine to intentionality, from old habits to informed choices. Because in this chapter of life, clarity, not quantity, is what protects your mind, your heart, and your independence.